So this is OCD beating tip number 10, and I gotta say before we get into it, it's a little unusual. It's probably one of the more abstract concepts that I'm gonna ever cover, but at the same time it's one of the most useful supports I found in recovering from OCD, but also in maintaining recovery. It's been almost 4 years now that I've been compulsion free, and I have to say this is something that I'm able to practice every day, and I see such incredible benefits from practicing this every day, not just when it comes to anxiety disorders, but really this is something that's useful at work, in relationships, just in life in general. It's a great tool for increasing happiness in your life, and it's also really going to help you dealing with whatever you're dealing with up in your head, whether it's OCD, other anxiety disorders, depression, addictions, whatever. Something you learn through recovery from a mental illness, or just something you learn about being happy in life, is that letting your thoughts run your life is like letting clouds in the sky run your life. And what we're going to talk about today is really getting to a point where you can treat thoughts like they're clouds passing over. So OCD beating tip number 10 is to remember that you are not your thoughts. And not just remember it, but then every day actively practice recognizing that, okay, you have thoughts and you don't have to react to those. Those thoughts don't have to run your life. You have your values, you have the healthy actions that you know you need to engage in, and you do those. And thoughts are things that just pass over, kind of like clouds just passing overhead. That can seem really strange at first, because for a lot of us, we like to think we're good at thinking. And you know what? You are good at thinking. But reacting to thoughts and assigning meaning to them is a source of all sorts of unhappiness and is often a driving factor in the compulsions that we're engaging in. So we get a thought, oh no, what if there are germs on my hands? And then we believe that thought, our brain had it, we're logical and rational beings, and we can always think of evidence for why that might be true, and then we go and engage in a compulsion to try to control that anxiety. But, and here's the big but, thoughts really are just like clouds. There's something we sense, there's something outside of us. They really are just passing over. So every time we react to a thought and start to engage in compulsions to try to control it, that's no different than if we saw a cloud in the sky and then reacted to that by trying to control all sorts of things in our life and change all sorts of things. So we walked outside and we saw a cloud in the sky that looked like a monkey. We're like, oh no, there's a monkey cloud in the sky. Quickly, do 10 push-ups and wash your hands 20 times. That seems really strange, but that's actually what's going on when we react to thoughts in our heads. Letting thoughts run your life is no stranger than letting clouds run your life. They're just things that you sense and you experience. The fact that they're inside your head makes it really tough and complicated for us. For our other senses, we're able to think, okay, I hear things that come from outside of me, I see things that come from outside of me, I feel things that come from outside of me. But because our thoughts are inside of us, we tend to associate them with ourselves. But the reality is that you don't have any more control over your thoughts than you have over the clouds in the sky. All you control is the meaning you assign to them and how you react to them. So if you decide that every cloud that looks like a monkey has a certain meaning, and it means that you're ugly and you're stupid and everybody hates you, then you can do that. And that's no different than taking a particular thought in your head about how you look today. And that thought also means that you're ugly and you're stupid and everybody hates you. The thoughts in your head are just like clouds, and they only have the meaning that you assign to them. Believing that you are your thoughts is what's known as cognitive fusion. And you can see this all the time when we're talking. When somebody says, I'm really worried right now that something bad is going to happen. That's an example of cognitive fusion. So they're saying, I'm worried something bad is going to happen, but what's actually happened there in their brain is that they've had a thought of something bad happening, and they've assumed that means that they're worried something bad is happening. But really, what we need to get to, and so this is something that you're going to work on, and this is one way you can practice it, is that when that happens, and normally you'd say, oh, I'm so worried something bad's going to happen, recognizing that you're not actually worried. What's happened there is you've had a thought that something bad could happen. And start to practice separating yourself from that thought. So you're there, you're great, everything is working well, and you have had this thought that something bad could happen. That having that thought is separate from you having to actually be worried. At first, this is going to seem absolutely ridiculous and impossible, and that's okay, because for years and years and years, you've practiced having a thought, immediately assigning meaning to it and reacting to it, and that you're so good at that that happens incredibly quickly. You have an urge. You feel, oh, I have this urge right now, I must react to it. And you do it. This happens with our addictions. We get so good at our addictions that we don't even see that process anymore, from going from thought to assigning meaning to it to acting on it. It's immediate and instant. So there are two ways to practice this and get better at it that I find really effective. So the first is that one I already mentioned, just briefly there, where you're reframing your relationship with your thoughts. So right now you say like, oh, I'm really worried about this, or I'm really embarrassed by that. Instead of saying it's like, okay, I'm just having this thought that something bad could happen, or I'm having this thought that people think I'm ridiculous. And recognizing that that's just a thing your brain does. It's just brain indigestion. You don't assign meaning to every fart that comes out of your ass, you don't assign meaning to every cloud in the sky, and you don't assign meaning to every thought in your brain. They are all the same. So to get really practical from an OCD perspective, but really this applies to anyone. Anybody who experiences anxiety around something, whether you've had the privilege of a diagnosis or not, you probably do things to cope with and check on and control that uncertainty. And if you keep doing that, your health is going to progressively get worse. Or if you're somebody who's struggling with OCD, it's already gotten to that point. So say from an OCD perspective, you're leaving the house, you have the anxiety, oh no, what if I didn't actually lock the door and I need to check in and make sure that it's locked because somebody could rob the apartment's going to get burned down, everything I own is going to get stolen, I'm going to end up on the street alone and penniless, and it's going to be the end of my life. So you have that thought, and normally you're like, oh no, that's a legitimate thought. People rob apartments all the time just by going around checking the door locks to see if any are open. So I better go back and check the door lock. And so recognizing, okay, I'm having that thought. In the past, you had that thought and you're like, oh, that's totally true, that's legitimate, and then you go and you check. You don't want to get yourself in that loop. You want to bring that hamster wheel in your brain to a stop. So when you're leaving the house and you have that thought, instead of just validating the thought and be like, oh, that's a real problem, start to recognize, oh, my brain is having a thought. It's doing that thing again that it does where it has thoughts and it tries to make me react to them. You don't have to chase every thought. Right? It's not like your brain is just this owner of you that throws sticks and you just run around and chase them and you chase after every single stick your brain throws at you. Your brain can have thoughts, it can have whatever thoughts it wants. Those don't have to affect the healthy actions you're going to engage in. Okay? No matter what reasons you can think of. It's not that you have to make those thoughts go away. It's totally okay for them to be there. You can really start to generate a sense of humor around this. We're just saying, oh, there's my brain just doing that thing it does again. Okay, so that's the first way. Try to incorporate it into your language. If that doesn't make sense, ask questions down below and we can talk about this more. So the second way to get really good at this and to really make it a support in your life and start to understand it a lot better is to practice meditation. Meditation is going to start to help you to put distance between you and your thoughts. Instead of just getting the urge to react to something, you're going to start to be able to see that process of, okay, I get this urge, I'm having these thoughts. I can choose whether I react to them. I can choose whether I give them meaning or not. And instead I can make healthy decisions about the actions that I actually want to take. Meditation is going to help a lot in that. Meditation is also going to help you start to see that you can switch your thoughts off. Right? You can take that hamster wheel in your brain, all that rumination, which is also a compulsion, thinking about things over and over and over again, trying to be certain about them and trying to be right. That's a compulsion. And meditation is going to help you bring that to a halt. You're going to be able to stop that. And one of the most amazing things that I found through practicing meditation that was such a big insight for me and breakthrough was realizing if I shut off the thoughts in my head, these thoughts where I was always thinking about things I needed to say to people and things that were going to happen, and my brain was constantly jumping to the worst possible conclusions imaginable all the time. And I really thought that, that wasn't important. I had to do that. The amazing thing about meditation is that when you learn to shut that off, you very quickly recognize that, oh, your sense of self doesn't disappear. You can shut off your thoughts. And not only does your sense of self not disappear, but you end up being happier. You end up having more energy because that just wears you right out. And you also are more capable of getting things done. A lot of the time when I talk about recognizing that you are not your thoughts, people can get very worried. They really value their thinking. They see that as a huge part of their identity. But the amazing thing, and I think this is the most important, most valuable piece of learning that you are not your thoughts and learning to practice it in your daily life, is that you're actually able to get done the things that you always wanted to get done. You're able to be the person who you know you are, but maybe you aren't acting as. So even though this might sound scary, it's actually going to help you to be more yourself, because those thoughts really are something external. And learning to treat them as just farts or clouds in the sky is honestly one of the most helpful things you can do. You make thoughts just something you sense. There's something that you can see, and if you decide, oh, that's a really nice thought, maybe you can take a picture of it. If you decide that's a really ugly thought, you can just let it pass on its way, and you don't have to react to it, and you don't have to do something with it. It doesn't have to control your life. And so those are 2 tips within a single tip. So of course the tip being, remember that you are not your thoughts, and practice that in your daily life. And you can practice that by starting to change your relationship with your thoughts, seeing that they are separate. There's you, and then there's your thoughts. And a big support in doing that is going to be meditation. The more distance you're able to put between your thoughts, the more you're able to learn how you can turn them off and bring them to a halt. So you can just take a deep breath, let those clouds pass on their way, and you can make the healthy decisions today and tomorrow and the day after that align with who you know you really are, not clouded by all these negative thoughts floating around in your head.